All right, hey guys, welcome back. For those that made it this far, we're on to neutral here. As always, I'm joined with my boys Skaz and Shepard. You both want to say hi?
Good evening. I'm Skaz.
This is Shepard, and I'm glad that we've been promoted from, hey, this is the one-off weirdo guest to, as always, here's
I mean, we're what six, 7 videos in or whatever.
True.
Hopefully, people are familiar with you guys now. And unfortunately, Pressure couldn't be here today, and we're kind of on a time crunch, so we couldn't wait for him. But yeah, I think that's all we really need to say. So let's get right into this review. So we got the first card here for neutral, which is a banger.
Oh boy.
6-drop 6/6. Oh, we talking about the devil here. 3/6 already. Oh my god. Zodiac Demon makes sense. Activate. Engage this card and discard a follower in your hand. Select an enemy follower on the field and deal it X damage, where X equals the cost of the discarded follower. Then deal Y damage to its leader, where Y equals half the cost of the discarded follower, rounded up. So at most, we're going to be dealing 10 and 5 to the enemy leader by discarding our 10/10/10s that heal for 10.
My evaluation of this card is it's a 6 out of 10.
Hey!
No, I think this card is like, there's so much going on here, but at the same time, so little going on here. The fact that you can only do this once per turn because it's going to engage itself means that you can't do anything like too broken with it. And also, like, it doesn't even feel like you're going to get that much out of it, even in like the dream scenarios. I'm not high on this card. I don't think it's particularly very good. I hope I don't ever lose to it because that would be heartbreaking. But like even in the greatest possible scenario, you're only going to be able to dome your opponent for 5. That requires you to put a bunch of 10 costs in your deck, or at least like 1 or 2. I don't know. This card just doesn't seem very good. What do you guys think?
I think this card is terrible. I think that all these X's and Y's, I ran the math, I did the algebra, and it comes out to this card sucks. Don't put it in your deck. 2 reasons why. 1, the only thing that would have made this playable is if it had the text Fallen Angel on it. Because that's a strategy that cares about discarding and doing stuff. 2, this is a game where you always get to get 1 mana per turn, unlike a game like Magic where you have to play lands, whatever. If you have a 10-drop in your hand, you're going to play it. It's turn 6, yeah, but also how many 10-drops you put in your deck? What are you doing? Playing this on 6 and then discarding a 7-drop? And then what are you doing on 7? Discarding another 7-drop? Or you could just play your 7-drop. You could just play your good card.
There's just not a lot of 10 costs in Shadowverse that you'd want to just naturally have in your deck. Like, even think of the biggest cards in the game just in your mind. You're probably thinking like Aegis and stuff. That's 8. That's not even 10.
I'm thinking like Genesis Dragon, but you know what's a good way to do damage to my opponent with Genesis Dragon?
The Genesis Dragon.
To play Genesis Dragon and attack them.
That does come down 4 mana later. But I don't know. I feel like there's a world where this card is actually kind of playable. If you just read it on its face as 6 mana, 6/6, ETB, tap itself, discard a random card, and then, hit something for 10, hit face for 5. Like, it's doing a lot, and it's actually not that bad. But, like, I don't feel like most decks are going to be making that happen very consistently from the deck construction requirements. So if you're building around this, maybe this is actually quite decent. But you have to build around this, in my opinion.
You just can't put that many big cost things in your deck, and if you're putting them in your deck, you're putting them in them to play them.
You have to have some way of tutoring these high cost things into your hand.
Yeah, you got to play like a weird world wielder gender deck. Yeah, I don't think this card ever gets there.
Yeah, the biggest thing too is like if you're trying to play towards this effect, it's just like you put a bunch of big costed cards that also make you brick more often. Great, you're just losing even more. Like, yeah. The only thing I will say, every time I look at this card, I just think of Final Fantasy 14. It just looks like a 14 boss to me because it's probably because of Endwalker. Yeah,
it is a sweet art. I will give it that credit. I love the stat line and the cost.
Yeah, let's move on.
Next card that matters.
Okay, Israil is an 8 cost 8/8. The face of this set even, and it's evolve for 1. It also has on its face strike. Deal 3 damage to each enemy follower on the field, so kind of like an ogre type effect. And Fanfare, give your leader 4 health. And on the Evo side, the strike instead deals 5 damage to each enemy follower on the field instead, and it becomes a 10/10. This card is going to be... I'm having so much trouble evaluating how the player base is going to feel about this card. I know how I feel about this card. But it's either going to be the most overrated or the most underrated card, probably within the entire set. But my evaluation is just that this card is actually quite good in the correct shell, and there aren't many shells that should be running this.
Yeah,
Card's nuts.
I hard agree. I also believe it's going to be. I think in general it's going to be super overrated by most players because honestly, every time I look at this card, the little Timmy in me is like, "Oh my god, a 10/10 that deals 5 to the whole board! Let's
And heals you
go!"
for 4. Crazy.
Yeah, it's just this card's insane.
This card's busted. I'm
yeah.
overrating it. This card's amazing. This card is why I think strategies like Ramp Dragon are going to be effective. I think you might see other control decks slot this in. I don't think every deck's going to want it, like you guys said, because you have to realistically have a game plan. But if this card is like on track with your game plan, it's just so good. It clears the board. It clears the board in a way where it doesn't take any damage back. It's a 2-turn clock. Heals you when it comes into play to take you out of the burn range if they have a Storm Threat on the crackback. I love this card.
Yeah, card's super good. It just does so much. Again, there's just not a lot of lists that want to run this. Like, you shouldn't be jamming this in, I'd say, more than like 2 decks in the format. Basically, control decks may want this as a finisher, but even like half the control decks, like the Haven control decks, may not want this because you can't tutor this off of Aether. So you have to just like jam them raw into your deck. I don't know. It's going to be hard to find space for this, but obviously the most obvious one is Ramp Dragon. We'll be playing this card, and it's going to be very good in Ramp Dragon.
Yeah, this is almost just a dragon card, but I think it is what makes Ramp Dragon so good.
Yep.
Well, among other things, but yes.
Yes.
Sorry, what upgrades it to be such a top tier contender?
Yeah. I'm basically aligned with you guys completely. I feel like the home for this card is Ramp Dragon. It might find some success in some control lists, and that's kind of it. Like, it's a good boss monster, but yeah.
One more thing to keep in mind, the obvious thing you need to pay attention to also is the board wipe is a strike effect, so they need to have something tapped in play for this to be board wiping anything. Just keep that in mind.
That's true. All right, next card. We got 3 play points for Grimnir War Cyclone. 3/4 stats on curve. It's got Evolve for 2, and it has Ward on the front side. It's also got Ward on the Evo. It jumps up in stats all the way to a 5/6. On Evolve, you can then pay another 4 play points. If you do, you deal 4 damage to each enemy leader and each enemy follower on the field. So big stats here, big board wipe. This card I'm really conflicted around. The stats are good. The effect is a way to dump mana. This is a much better version of a similar card that we saw in Abyss that goes from a 4/4 or a 3/4 with Ward to a 7/7 without Ward. I would rather be playing this. I haven't, as much as I like this card, I haven't seen a deck that I actually want to play it in yet.
Kit, what do you think?
I generally like this card overall. Like, when I first looked at it, I was like, this is such a weird card. But the more I thought about it and talked about it with you, I generally like this card overall. It's like, it's a really good like late game, like low. I don't want to call it low cost because you need to pay the 4 play points on for the Evo effect. But you don't always have to, because if there's a board that you don't really care about, then sure. But it's really nice that if you're investing the extra play points late game and this is like a top deck card, you immediately get value by, possibly board wiping your opponent, but also dealing 4 damage to face. Now they have to deal with this 5/6 on the board that also has Ward, so it can protect you if need be. It just seems like it's like a fake. How do I put this? It's just like the unevolved card doesn't feel like it's a card, or it seems like it's a card you want to play early, but at the same time, like the Evo portion of the card seems like it's a late game play. Hopefully that.
Yeah, that's what I think what makes it so good is like you draw it and you play it on 3, you don't feel bad. You draw it and you play it on 9, you don't feel bad. I think it's just a strong role player. Like I said, the only frustrating part is I think the powers here, I haven't found the home for it.
Yeah, I was about to say, in my opinion, I've tested this a couple times. My final takeaway on this card is this is the best card in the set that does not have a deck it goes in whatsoever. I don't know where you would ever play this. I've tested it a couple times, and honestly, all of its play patterns feel quite good. The fact that you can drop this on 3 and it's got the universal great 3-cost stat line of 3/4, so it's out of surefire bullet range for a non-evolved follower. The only thing it dies to is like Angel of Darkness, and like obviously stuff like Serpent Wrath, which is kind of fraudulent, but whatever. If this sticks to the board the turn you play it on curve, You can evolve it next turn for 2 mana. It becomes a 5/6 that can swing in. Obviously, it has ward, so it's just like it's got an amazing stat line on the Evo, especially if you're on turn 4 with a 5/6. Like that's really hard for almost every deck to deal with. So it has to be answered that turn, or it's gonna be threatening a lot of damage and this big board. Obviously, late game, it's got the mode of just like being a board wipe. It's also 4 base damage, so it's like better than Gian, Dark Gian. Cards, again, genuinely quite good, but unfortunately, like, what deck are you going to put this in? It's so general. It doesn't seem to fit any specialized game plan in any way, and as a result, it's really having trouble finding a home. So I like the card. I do think it's good, but I don't know where I would play it, and I honestly probably wouldn't recommend that you do play it. But if you find a home for it, DM me on Discord. I want to play
Same. Oh, like yeah. It's so weird because this card just like if it reads well, it looks like it does well, and then you play it, and it just feels like, damn, it feels good playing it, but it also feels like, it just yeah.
But in like the deck construction phase, it's just like, well, that slot's probably got to go to something else.
Yeah,
slots are always so tight in these decks. If you had room for just like 10 more slots, if this was like a 50 card game and it was like, I got more slots, like I'm jamming Grimnir, I'd feel great about that. Like it wouldn't even feel bad. Like the card, when you play it, feels good. It just, I don't know. It wants to be in like a tempo deck that also wants like end game finishers, and tempo decks for the most part are like pretty combo centric and like don't have room for just generic good cards.
This is like a set 1 card where you're just like, in set 1, a lot of the decks you're just like, I'm just gonna play the cards that are good in my deck, and that's what this is. And I just think the card pool's too far.
I'd say this is like almost too complicated for a set 1 card. Like a lot of set 1 cards were like very dumb.
In set 1, a lot of the cards that you put in your strategy were just whatever the good cards they printed were,
Yeah, I think honestly a good comparison would probably be like Olivia. And I know it sounds weird because Olivia's different mana does completely different things, but it's like Olivia is one of those cards where you look at the card and you go, this card's insane. Like it's 5 cost, 5/5 with all these effects. It's a command essentially. But like, how many lists are running Olivia these days? Not a lot.
I think Olivia is just one of those cards that's going to see on and off play. I think set 4 Olivia is actually way stronger than set 3 Olivia.
Which deck is running it? Well, we can talk about that another time. But anyways, this card is quite good.
Yeah.
Just again, I don't know where you'd play it.
I think we can move on. I think we're all in agreement.
Yep. Who's it now?
Ariat, Soothing Harpist. This is a 5 mana 4/5 Cassiopeia stats. It has to be good, right, guys? Let's get to the effect. It has Fanfare. Select an engaged follower on your field. Give it +2/+2 and refresh it. That follower can't attack this turn. So you attack or you engage something and it protects it and makes it bigger for next turn. This card is not good. I don't think this effect gets there. I don't know if there's some combo I'm missing here, like some specific card you pair it with, but kind of similar to some of the other stuff we talked about. I just don't know what strategy is looking to do this on 5. Especially when you compare it to how good all the other 5 drops you could be playing are, like Olivia, Cassiopeia, etc.
It does not combo with Zodiac Demon because it is 1 mana off of being playable on 10.
You know what it does combo with though?
What is a combo with?
Our favorite card, Forte. You Evo Forte, you slam it in with an Evo point, and then you play this card to refresh it, and it's like so hard to kill now.
True, yeah.
And then you die immediately after anyway to your opponent's Forte. And
finally, a card that makes Forte good.
An enabler. This card's not very good. It feels like one of those cards that will probably be playable sometime down the line, but not now.
Let's get.
I will say, for those who are looking to play in the Open 8 formats, I actually think this card is kind of insane for Open 8 because at any point, if you get something like stuck on the board, you can swing it in and then protect it and then make it even bigger, and you're threatening a really huge turn that follows up that. Like, I think this card's actually insane for Open 8, just not in constructed.
Yeah, in the sealed format, this card would probably be like maybe an all-star, honestly.
Yeah, I think this is going to be highly underrated in that format.
All right, I think we can move on, right? We got here Staircase to Paradise, 1-drop amulet. Whenever a follower leaves your field and goes into the cemetery, Put a soul counter on this card. Activate if this card has 6 or more soul counters. Engage this card. Put this card into your cemetery. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may reveal up to 2 followers from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Wow. The payoff is horrible. But
a lot of text on that card.
Yeah.
Do you think this card's playable?
Probably not. Like, what are we even doing with this card?
I think it's trying to make you play this in like Abyss aggro or something, where you play this on turn 1, it's going to see a bunch of stuff die, and it lets you refill your hand later on for 1 mana essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But my biggest problem with that is my 1 mana in those kinds of decks, I want it to be a goblin like every time. So I just don't feel good about it. Yeah, it feels like it's just off. Like, you want your hand refilled to be the mana you spend later on when you're out of cards, you're out of your cheap cards. You don't want it to be a preemptive mana drop.
It's also
puts
like
you behind on curve.
You do so much work. You put this into play. 6 things die, and then what's the benefit? You go +1 card on card advantage. Like, what is that? Like, what is that for? Why? It's also a follower leaves your field, so you're not even putting this in Amulet, Haven, and then getting value later to like crack your like. This card's horrible. I hate this card. It's like
it's not even a tutor either. Like, it's not. You can't use it like for like a combo deck. Like, you want to get these 2 specific cards. No, it just looks at top 5. I don't know.
I can't imagine a card I want my opponent to play more than this card.
Maybe the next card we talk about. Honestly.
No, I don't know. That card gets you more value. So
that's actually true, kind of.
We'll just move on to the next card. I think we all agree this is
card sucks.
It sucks, yeah.
All right, Pure-Hearted Singer. It's a 3-cost 1/2. Fanfare and Last Words. Draw a card. I think this card, if it had even slightly better stats, it would be playable. I think in its current state, this card is really bad, and I would probably never play it.
I think this card reminds me of the 2-mana Rune card that we talked about that was a 1/2 that draws a 1-mana spell, where it's like, yeah, it's card advantage, but the problem is that part of the card advantage you're getting is like a card that doesn't really affect the board. A 1/2 for 3 mana that just stands and does nothing. It just doesn't do enough. It doesn't advance your game plan. It doesn't cause your opponent to have to care about anything. It doesn't swing. It doesn't block. And what do you get at the end of all this work? You get approximately an Alice's worth of card advantage. Well, guess what? Alice is a neutral card. You can just play Alice.
Assuming you're in a Fable deck, but yeah.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying, right? You're just like, you do all this work, and then what do you get? Like, nothing.
I'd also compare this to the Owl from Rune, where it's like the 1 mana loot twice, because that also lets you draw 2 cards effectively. But even in that deck, like, you actually get benefit from dumping cards into the yard too. So it almost feels like almost better than just drawing 2 cards. And one of the fundamental flaws of this card versus that card is rush. So it could just kill itself really quickly to get the last words advantage, whereas this can't do that. You're going to have to delay the draw on this thing no matter what, unless you're doing something like a Dark Offering or something, which you'll never do because you'll never play this card. This card seems really terrible. Again, I would never play it.
Yep.
All right, moving on.
All right, Goblin Princess. This is a 3-cost 2/1. It evolves for 1, and it has Fanfare. Search your deck for a neutral follower that costs 1 play point and put it onto your field. Very importantly, not your hand. It tutors it to the field. And then on evolve, you add a Goblin King token to your EX area. The Goblin King token is a 4-mana 6/6 that has, when it comes into play, give all your Goblinoids +1/+1. Obviously, this card is a Goblinoid. And this card's really good. I actually think some people are going to underrate this. It's really powerful. On the face of it, what this card actually reads is you get a Bowringer, and then if you have mana, you evolve, you trade into something, you do whatever you need.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, it gives you the value of the Goblin King. Like, later on, it could be next turn, it could be the turn later. Like a 4-mana 6/6, I think it has Ward, right? The 4-mana 6/6, like, that's already great value right there. And this is great value on its face. And the fact that it's going to be tutoring you a Bellringer like pretty much every time means it's going to replace itself. Like, this thing is doing so much for just 1 card. This card's actually really good. You should keep an eye on this. And you should consider working it into certain decks like your Dragon decks and maybe even some Haven decks. I'm not sure who else would run this. Where else would you run this?
Honestly, I don't know. This is just like a card that reads to me like, if you play Bellringer, you should just consider this card. Like,
for sure.
Yeah.
it's a very general card, but it's like
Mhm.
it's actually so surprisingly good for what it does. Would highly recommend at least like testing this and like looking around at this card. It's very good. But again, it's very generalist. So for like the hyper, I have a very specific game plan type decks. You're not going to find room for this. Like your rune decks are never going to play this, for example.
Yeah. And this card is just Valueville, basically. It's just so good all around.
You're going to play this and you're like, wow, I'm like really doing it. Like you do a lot of stuff with this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right,
Cool
we can
card.
move on to the next card. Unfortunately, Shepard had to step away, and we don't think he'll be back. So we'll just say goodbye for him. Goodbye.
Bye, Shepard.
All right, next card here. Mystic Ring. 1-drop spell. It's a quick, put a card in your hand on the bottom of your deck and draw a card. And the biggest thing here is that it helps enable your Chimera game plan for Rune. Does it do anything else like super special? I guess we could put like, okay, listen, we're playing some really janky deck and we're still playing Flaming Glass. You can put your Flaming Glass back in your deck, I guess.
Sure. I mean, even decks like Haven, like you don't even really want to bottom your Aegises with this to like tutor out with Aether.
Mm-hmm.
It's not card positive, and that's the fundamental flaw with this. If it were card positive, you'd see this show up more, but it's just not. And as a result, like it only will show up in the Rune deck where it really has to have that effect, or else it's a non-functional deck. So that's why it runs it, and it's quite good there. But in every other sense, it's just not a very good card. So hyper niche, but very good in the one deck that plays it.
Yeah, one thing I will say though, which is kind of cute, is like the decks that do find a home with this card, I feel like are going to have a lot of control pieces, and say your opponent does something and you need to have an answer immediately on their turn. When they swing in, you can like Mystic Ring and hopefully top deck the card. Even though you go down card in hand, you do hopefully find the answer to live another turn, which is kind of cute. It has like cool lines like that, but everything else, it's pretty mediocre unless it has the perfect home like Chimera to work with.
Yep.
All right.
Let's talk about Alcat. Alcat is a 2-cost 2/2 with evolve for 1. On evolve, select an enemy follower on the field with 1 or less attack or defense and banish it. And when it evolves, it becomes a 3/3. This card is, the art is bizarre. I've been trying to understand what is happening in the art. Like he's thinking about a mouse, and then like you could see her. I assume her. I don't know. I'm gendering all cats. Whatever. She's like in the background. I'm so confused. Anyway, this card's not very good. It just seems like really niche. It feels like it's really restrictive on what it can attack or what it can banish and what it can't. It's neat that it banishes though. That is one thing I'll say. It will banish Bellringers, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, that's the only card that comes to my head where like banishing it seems really good. Is there even anything else that's running around with 1 attack or 1 defense?
PDK.
Oh yeah, PDK. Until it comes out with +2 health. Yeah. Or not +2 health, plus goes up to 2 attack.
Yeah, well then it's no longer targetable.
Yeah.
This card is like pretty bad. I just wouldn't play it. Like the upside of like, oh, we could kill something that's damaged. Not a lot of things live with 1 HP because most effects tend to tailor their damage to kill most things. So things living with 1 health, you don't want to spend 3 mana to remove that 1 health. And there's just not enough running around with 1 or less attack for this to be worth it. I would not play this. I would not put it in your deck.
Oh, old man and old woman, maybe. I guess. Yeah.
Swordsman.
Next card here, Mr. Full Moon. What is going on with this guy?
So swaggy. Look at that mustache.
I don't know why when I look at him, I just think of McDonald's. Like there was like a McDonald's character.
They had like a mascot at one point. Yeah.
5-drop 3/3 with Fanfare and Last Words. Select an enemy flower on the field. Give it -3/-3. What a bizarre effect.
Strange card.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
There's just so much better things for removal and that come out and basically remove the things earlier.
True.
I'm not really saying like I listen in was it Open 8? This card is probably going to be a pretty good bomb. Yeah.
That's what I was about to say. Don't play this in your constructed decks. You don't even really need to talk about it. It's just not good. But in Open 8, I think this card's actually kind of a bomb, and it's a bronze, so you're probably going to see more than one.
Yeah.
This Card's kind of good in Open 8. Keep in mind the shrinking of the attack is very relevant here. Even if this thing doesn't kill something with its -3 health, if it shrinks its attack to from like 4 to 1 or to just like some irrelevant number, it almost doesn't matter that it didn't actually reach the kill threshold because like it's much less relevant. Like this card is actually very good in Open 8. At least I would assume it is. But yeah, don't play it in your constructed decks. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I agree across the board. All right, we're on to our last card here.
Knight's Way. 3 mana Amulet. This is one of the strangest cards in the whole set, and actually weirdly playable. So let's talk about it. It's a 3 mana Amulet. Activate, engage this card. If there are no cards in your EX area, put the top card of your deck into your EX area. So it's essentially 3 mana for an Amulet that can repeatedly draw a card once per turn, as long as the card that you draw gets played, essentially, because it has to clear the EX area in order to draw the next card.
Yeah.
It's strange.
It is very strange because, like, at the same time, like, you think it's like draw a card, play the card, then you get to draw a card again. But then you got to remember there are other cards that will generate resources in the EX zone. So, like, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is Fable. You use your EX zone a lot, which means this card is not drawing you cards, like, ever once you play it. So it has to find its home in some kind of deck that doesn't really use the EX area. Because I can't imagine, like, unless you're treating this out with Kaguya a lot of times or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I can't imagine a home for this card that it'll get like maximum value and be like worthwhile, especially if I'm spending an entire turn to play this card, to draw a card basically, and then hopefully I'm going to draw another card next turn, or it finds me something I need. It is very cute, and there's something that it works very well with in the future, maybe even now, and I'm just missing it.
Yeah. Okay, I have to ask you a hypothetical. How many cards do you need to get off of this in order to feel like it was worth putting in your deck and playing? Is it 2? Is it 3? What's your threshold?
It's probably 3. If this comes down and it guarantees me to see 3 cards every time, because like I know we talked earlier about like health being a very important resources, but PTP just comes out and immediately gets me to draw 3 cards, and I get to like do something about that. Whereas this card is like conditional draw that basically shuts off my EX zone. And like I said earlier, there are cards that require you to work with your EX zone. So
I think if breaking a grind match between 2 decks is very important, this card's going to be going up in value over time. I just don't see a lot of the format being very grindy, because a lot of these decks are just kind of running their hands out, trying to kill you, and if they kill you, great. If they don't kill you, they lose. But if you see a lot of like Ramp Dragon Mirror and stuff, then like we're going to maybe see Knight's Way show up. That being said, you mentioned it earlier, Kaguya can cheat this thing out for 3 mana, or for 0 mana, because it's exactly 3 mana. So it fits with Kaguya well, but that being said, I personally haven't found room in the deck to run this, but I would probably, in the previous Kaguya lists, I've been playing with the 1 of PTP, so maybe I would run a 1 of this instead. But even then, I'm not sure. And as for the other place you'll see this show up, I already mentioned Ramp Dragon. Prescia's been testing this as a 1 of in his Ramp Dragon list, and he says he's actually kind of liked it a bit. So it may show up in Ramp Dragon also. But I don't really think you'll see this anywhere else.
Yeah, I could totally see it in Ramp Dragon as just like a random card that just lets you dig a little bit more, because once again, Dragon's one of those classes that, or crafts that, just have no real search function until we get Tartman, basically.
Tartman.
Yeah. But yeah, that
woman.
True. But that wraps it up for the neutral review. If you made it this far and watched every single one, thank you so much. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Thank you to Skaz, Shepard, and Prescia for joining me through this entire adventure. I know it's really annoying to get people all together at the same time. It's rough coordinating that, but I'm glad we made it worked out for the most part with everyone. So yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, all I can say is that, well, look around. At the end of the day, I'm the only one still here. So I won the Battle Royale. I will be taking my check for $1,000. And thank you so much for having us. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, that being said, guys, hopefully we'll see you guys in our other videos. I do have a video coming out that's going to be talking about, I think I already revealed it. It is talking about tempo in this game and how important it is. And then I am kind of working on another video that's like slowly being pieced together about control in this game and how like traditional control is not real. But yeah, so you can kind of look out for those videos coming out hopefully soon. Other than that, later everyone.
Peace.